Well, good morning, everybody. This is Paul Woodadge again for WW2 TV, and we've got a cracking live show from Gold Beach today for you. And unlike last Sunday from Omaha Beach, when the weather was distinctly not very good, today it's absolutely gorgeous. So my expert today is Ben Mayne, who's zooming in from England, who would have been here this time of year, but what with COVID and what have you, it's stuck in England. So thanks for joining us, Ben.
Not a problem at all. Thanks for having me on again.
And down on the beach, we have the dream team, Mag and Duncan there. They are on Gold Beach, King Sector, and I'll show up an image of where they are just so you get an idea. This is where we're going to be looking at today. This is an aerial photo showing the journey positions in the area of Gold Beach. So you've got where the camera teams are starting is over here, Vie de Stansnest 35, and over here is 33A, which is the Mont Fleury gun battery, and there's a tank ditch was there. And this is the area we're going to be focusing on. And I'm going to let Ben use his knowledge and expertise to run through some of the things that I guess people won't know about, which is the landings there, and we'll give you the live images of the bunkers. So Ben, I'll hand over to you. Who was landing there? What were they do? What was their objective, and how did it go?
Yeah, so this, as we look out now, is Gold Beach. You have the King sector that we're looking at on the area we are now looking at across the green sector, and then off to the right hand side, we probably might not be able to see it with the angle of the coast. Off to the right would have been red. Again, where we are now on King Green, we had the Green Howards landing, and then off to the right hand side we had the 5th East Yorkshire Regiment coming in round that corner as well. The landscape that we can see at each beach, it's all got its own different topography, different challenges that the Allies would come up against. And here, one of the main issues for the naval aspect as well was the offshore reefs that ran along this area as well, which kind of dictated where they could get into areas of the beach to land without hindering the vessels, the crafts that would be coming in. If you are to, you can see here from, is this Duncan just stood up on what now you class where the bluff is. It's only a couple of feet high, but you can see nice open ground once you're clear of the beach into the countryside. Only small villages littered this area, but the idea, once the British were landing here, was to push in about 18 kilometres southwards to link up on the left-hand side, on the left flank with the Canadians. On the right-hand flank would be the Americans, the 1st Division landing at Omaha, and then to push towards the city of Bayer. That was one of the key objectives for the British 50th Infantry Division that would be landing here in this area. Again, really good overview of that countryside, the Ver-sur-Mer off to the left, and then pushing inland towards Crepon, just behind it to the left. The open countryside that the Allies were looking for, especially from the tank warfare aspect, to push and get momentum going as they moved inland.
And the objectives were pretty ambitious. I mean, we had Alex Scott, my friend Alex, on our D-Day stream back in June, and his uncle was in the 24th Lancers, and their objective was Villa-Bocage, believe it or not. Or not an objective, but if you get that far, and that's like 25 miles inland. So they were very, very ambitious on Gold. And I think generally those watching, Gold is the beach that we know the least about. I think generally we spend too much time on Sword and with the airborne. And when we do Gold, you've got to cover the Mulberry Harbours and things like that. And I think all of us as tour guides, we neglect Gold at our peril, really. And it's also a bit, as you said, Ben, before we went live, it's hard to get buses there when you're working with Ledger. Getting down to where we are now is pretty much impossible. And even the bit further up where Stan Hollis landed is difficult to get to with a bus. So we favor other sites. So it's great to bring some stuff that's a bit unusual. Duncan's found something metal. What you found there, Duncan? Yeah, could be something. But and this is the surviving parts of the bunker here on the Vie de Stansnest, and there's quite a few there you can actually see, and it's pretty unchanged, that landscape. It's still got the kind of marshy bit behind the beach, the open ground raising up to this this bluff that is essentially the same bluff you get behind Omaha Beach. It's just on Gold Beach, it's a little bit further back. It's about the same height. It's about 30 meters, so about 90 feet, something like that. And this is one of the bunkers they're going into now. It had a 5 centimeter emplacement that Mag showed you earlier. It had 3 shelters, a couple of machine guns, and an anti-aircraft 2 centimeter flak position. And interestingly about this, and I'll hand back to Ben, is they incorporated the Germans some existing French stone into the bunkers, which you don't usually see. Normally you see pure concrete, but in this case, they actually used some stone. There were some dwellings there. There were some houses there before the war, which I'm guessing they sort of stripped and used to sort of to help build the bunkers, but also, I guess, camouflage them slightly as houses. But I'll hand back to Ben now, and we'll carry on about talking about the landings here.
Yeah, just one final piece on the topography of the landscape you've just touched on already, Paul, was that once you come up from the beach here and over that bluff, you've then got a good probably half a kilometre of stretch of land that is marshland as well, which would not allow tanks, tracked vehicles to move through. So again, when the British did land, they needed to secure the roadways that led from the beach up to the main coastal road. So again, in some ways similar to Omaha Beach, where you've got the draws that needed to be secured to clear the beach. And this photo is a good example here. If you follow the road up from the left, one of the roadways that needed to be secured, the Mont Fleury Battery, just there that Paul is highlighting,
which we'll be going to later,
where we have Mag and Duncan now, WN35 down on the beachfront itself. And this is where D Company of the 6th Green Howards would be landing directly. A Company would be landing directly in front of that position. D Company on their left-hand side at the start of that roadway that we just followed, and then across to their left, the 5th East Yorkshire Regiment around the area of WN35. But again, as Paul just said, you can see the emplacements here, stone built emplacements, and at the Mont Fleury Battery as well. You'll see like breeze block type structure compared to the usual, or what you commonly see, the solid concrete blocks. And I guess that may be a factor as the months rolled by and the closer that it came to the 6th of June, the Germans themselves may have been struggling with obtaining concrete, with the railways being destroyed, the supply chain to get the material across for them to continue making the Atlantic war to the standard that they may want. They were having to then improvise, become more efficient, and use what they could get their hands on, rather than having those that have visited the WM positions across the Normandy coast, or even up in the Calais area. If you look at the concrete emplacements, and if you look beyond just the concrete structure, you can usually see horizontal lines all around the positions where the organisation top usually would make moulds, casts out of the wood, then they're pouring the concrete in amongst the steel bars to create these strong structures, where here you can see that they're having to use what they can to try and make up these positions. As Paul said, Mag started off at the 5 centimetre anti-tank gun. That position was right on the front of the bluffs. And as the years have gone by now, you can see that coastal erosion, the coastline is pushing back further into the land here. So it is changing.
Yeah, I was just going to make that point. You can see here from this period photo that there was much more grass right around and up and beside the bunkers. Now, as Ben said, the beach has pushed maybe another 30 meters inland a bit. So they're sitting very exposed on the beach. They would have been much more dug into the dunes and things. So they look a bit, not silly now, but they're very stark now. And they wouldn't have been that obvious at the time. But a great place to visit. And that's the top one of the shelters there. So that's probably the earlier one, because that is pure concrete. There's no stone on that one. But yeah, later on they seem to be using stone, which is, as Ben said, is likely to be because of lack of material, and also the fact there was stone lying around these existing houses. So just use it. What's the problem? So an amazing position to get to, and it's a great part of the beach to walk along. Obviously, these modern stone breakwaters weren't there; they were wooden ones at the time, but still a pretty authentic location. And it's low tide. The reason we chose to do the show this time of day is it is low tide, just to get more of a sense of the landscape. And we talk about the big beaches on Omaha, but of course, Gold is only a few miles down the road, not quite as big as Omaha. But when they land at low tide, it would still been a good 200 or 300 yards of sand. Much more than Sword, where you get maybe only 100 yards of sand at Sword. It's different topography, each 5 beach. I've had people contact me via World War II TV and say that they're tempted to go and visit more locations because of these films. And that's exactly what we're trying to do here, is highlight some of the lesser known places and encourage people to get out there and see them, and not just see them, but read about them as well. And I say Gold Beach is I think the forgotten one in some ways.
Yes. Here, so it was around at 7:37 in the morning that the infantry touched down right in front of this position here. Say A Company of the 6th Green Howards coming in. I think it was another show you mentioned, Paul, about like the all arms aspect of the naval, the air force, and then also landing on the beaches with the engineers, the Avries, the armour from here, the 4th and 7th Royal Dragoon Guards coming in. I think it was B Squadron here. They all seem to land at the same time. The initial planning were staggered. The engineers, armour should land 5-10 minutes before the infantry come in onto the beach. But as we know, across all of the 5 beaches, due to the conditions, strong tides pushing a lot of the landings off to the east, are out of position in some cases. They all kind of tend to land all together. And the DD tanks, the crews on the LCTs that would launch them realised that launching at 6,000 yards out was not going to be appropriate. So they bring the DD tanks in roughly to around 1,000 yards. So then they got a slow wade in instead of those open seas where they obviously appreciated that the DDs would have drowned if they'd have released them that far out to sea to make their own way in. So A Company landing right in front of this position here. Quite quickly, they realised that they're being pinned down by the fire. I think it was an Ost battalion that was here. Off the top of my head, I can't remember the exact number of the unit that was there. I'd guess roughly between 30 to 50 men, and it does say Ukrainians were manning this position here. You got believed to be 6 to 7 machine gun positions stretched out, 2, as you said, 2 anti-aircraft guns, flak guns behind, mines to the left and right of the position as well. When Rommel took on or was given the task of building the Atlantic Wall, is it right in saying that he wanted 4 million mines laid across the front, and by the 6th of June he had around 2 million mines across the coast?
Yeah, I think he'd said 8 million he wanted, but by the point he was making that was February 44. He said that you can request what you want, you're not going to get it. The production, the transport, as you said to earlier, is not working. So you can ask for 50 tanks and 100 anti-aircraft guns. You'd be lucky to get 2 and 1. It's just everybody needs stuff. The Italian front, the Russian front, still everybody needs materials, everybody needs guns, everybody needs troops, and there aren't enough to go around. But another good image there of Duncan is showing one of those inland positions there with the structure. And yeah, they've collapsed a bit, and but it's good to see. It's good. When we were there the other day on our recce, we reckon it's probably the most intact Widerstandsnest in the British sector. We can't think of one that's got as many bunkers, albeit some of them are kind of collapsed, but we think it's the most complete.
Yeah, I think there's about 6 of these positions that would have been used for billets, but in that one, if Duncan just goes back to the left, you can see an aperture where infantry could then come and look out towards the beach. Yeah, limited view just from there. Yeah. But again, a loophole somewhere where infantry could fire out from. Say 6 of these positions around here, so roughly 30 to 50 men manning this WN position.
Battalion 441. Thanks Niels for adding to that on the YouTube there. So there we are.
Thank you.
Information for the viewers.
It's so the men are pinned down pretty quickly up against the seawall. They realise that they need to get moving. The first wave especially, they need to get moving and up off this beach to then head in towards Crepon, the Mont Fleury Battery that's probably kilometre behind, would you say, roughly?
Yeah, about that, yeah.
And it's where one of the first actions, then we've got 3 men being awarded one military cross and 2 military medals for the actions here. Lieutenant, who was temporary major, Frederick Honeyman, a military medal for Lance Sergeant Hugh Prenti and Lance Corporal Alfred Joyce. And they realised that they need to get their men moving off this beach, so they decide to rush and storm the machine gun position that was holding them down. Here,
this is Honeyman here, the portrait of Honeyman, and he was 23, we said, wasn't he?
Yeah, I believe he was killed on the 11th of June. Christoph, I think he was killed in action there, where he went off to some woods to try and help some of his comrades that were pinned down. He was killed in action, but yeah, 23 years of age. And from my perspective, to look back and think what I was doing at 23 years of age, to think what these men, the women of the Second World War did, it's incredible at that age, the leadership, the courage, and what they did. But
you kindly sent through the citations in the preparation. This is Honeyman's citation here, referring to the La Rivière, which is the sort of the hamlet as part of Ver-sur-Mer, explaining what he did there to earn the military cross. You see, it was approved there on the 12th of July 1944. And so it says, on reaching the position, the enemy were found to be sheltering behind a 6-foot wall, lobbing grenades into forward sections. He went forward himself, and although hurt in arm and leg by splinters, restored the impetus of the attack and took the position, killing or capturing all of the enemy. The leadership, initiative, and personal courage of this officer was directly responsible for the capture of a vital and strongly fortified position. And the other 2 citations of the other 2 gentlemen are very similar. So it may not be a very visited site, this, but there certainly is some incredible heroism there. And it proves that there are more heroes on Gold Beach than just the famous Stanley Hollis Victoria Cross. Yeah. So great stuff.
Yeah, and also by then, knocking out 35, the track that Mag and Duncan have come down would then be free for the infantry to then press up and work up towards the what would be the northwestern or the left flank of the Mont Fleury Battery, which would be the next objective to go up to for A Company.
No, this is brilliant. And again, I hope you folks watching this are enjoying these live images. We're so lucky the weather is great. We're going to try and plan some more of these over the next few weeks as we get in towards autumn, but we may have to schedule them fairly last minute, but depending on what the weather's like. There's no point us scheduling one for, say, let's say November the 20th, and it turns out that week is solid rain. So we may end up just looking at the week, seeing if we've got a good one, and try and put something together very quickly for you. I also want to go out with my phone and my camera and do some live stuff just sort of off the cuff as well. But we're so lucky in October to get weather like this in Normandy. It's absolutely beautiful today. And as usual, our dream team of cameras is doing a fantastic job. And Colin drove them down there today. Our producer, we call him now these days. Colin just makes sure they get there on time and don't get lost and they're in the right place. And there's the 5 centimeter again. So while Ben was talking, I did show an original photo of that, but it's all, again, all the sand and earth that would have been around it has long since been washed away. And it has that the step up at the back there, and there's a grab rail there to help clamber in. And I'll bring up the image of it as it was at the time again, just so you can get an idea. So you can see at the time the grass was right up to around it, and it's a few yards away from the beach. And now, of course, it's right on the beach. That's coastal erosion for you. But that's where they are. That's where Mag is there. That's live images. There's a grab rail there, just on the entrance there. You can see to help climb up. There would have been steps up there, and that was for a 5-centimeter gun. So great stuff. So where's Duncan? Let's check where Duncan is. Duncan's looking at the shelter. That's one of the shelters. And that's Bentley there. Let's put the camera on Bentley. He's another important part of the World War II TV team. He eats our ginger biscuits, and he just comes around and just makes sure we're in the right place as well. He's another unsung hero. So, yeah, I'm glad what you talked about, Ben, with the landings here, because I think, as I said earlier, we don't know much about Gold Beach in terms of the infantry landings. We focus too much on the fact that's where the Mulberries were built. So, thank you very much for bringing this information. It's really good stuff. And the Green Howards are a cracking British regiment, and they I think along with the DLI, I think they were the most decorated units in Normandy, I believe.
I'm not sure on that.
Yeah. So anyway, I forget where we got to in the story now, but yeah, they moved on roads inland, weren't we? So
yes. From the accounts that I've read and the diaries as well, when the infantry were coming into land, they make reference to an eerie silence as they're approaching as well. They clearly thought they'd be under constant fire right from the very beginning as they moved in towards the beach. But a few accounts say of this eerie silence. It's not until they actually land on the beach that then they begin to receive small arms fire, mortar fire from these positions. And they say that was testament to the pre-bombardment of these positions leading up to the landings. The offshore bombardment from the Navy from 6:30 for an hour onwards onto these positions. Two of those Navy ships, HMS Orion, HMS Belfast, that were off Gold Beach itself, just two of them that were firing in, especially onto the Mont Fleury Battery itself and beyond. And if we get time at the end, I'll come back to HMS Orion and one of the actions that they were involved in towards the end of the day, just off the back of Gold Beach itself. The planning as well stands out and shows the depth of detail that the Allies took into consideration. And although we can't see it from this position here, where D Company of the 6th Green Howards came ashore, the aerial photography showed that the roadway that led up towards the Mont Fleury Battery, it'd been bombed twice leading up to D-Day in May and June. And it was seen there was a large bomb crater right in the middle of the road that the tanks, tracked vehicles would need to get up and through to progress inland. And because of that, they realised that they needed to plug this hole, fill this hole really early on. One of the first actions, and the Royal Engineers on one of the Hobart's funnies with the fascines, they'd measured the dimensions. They got an idea from the photography of the width of the crater itself, and they were able to design fascines that would fit exactly into that bomb crater to then help the infantry.
The beach. Yeah, I mean, and you're right to mention that planning by the Allies, and of course we must focus on the fact that Germans are adapting their defenses as well. As they reinforce one, they then reinforce another one. And the reason, they're probably the silence in this particular sector is obviously a very, very heavy landings at Anel over to the west, which were probably the first British landings. And I was showing my screen there for some reason. Let's stop. That's now. Better. So there's lots of fighting at Anel, and obviously the defenses in front of the Mont Fleury Battery are pretty strong as well. So it's in the testament to the Allied planning is they're able to understand and work out these weaknesses and gaps and things. So I'm going to have the camera team sort of work their way back to the van soon, so we can head off to Mont Fleury and our next objective. I think we've done enough of the positions there. So we'll have you, Colin, drive up the track and take you off to our next location, and we can carry on talking about the inland land gun batteries as well, Ben, because you mentioned Mont Fleury, the gun battery inland, and it's one of the approximately there's a German gun battery every 8 to 10 miles in Normandy. And the famous ones everybody knows of are Pointe du Hoc, Merville Battery, Long-sur-Mer. But Mont Fleury is another one of the lesser known ones. You've got San Marcouf up the side of Utah. And each one is, I say, about 8 to 10 miles apart. Each one has guns that can tend to fire between 12 to 15 miles. So they overlap down the coast. And these are the gun batteries that are often set inland a little ways. So that, if you've got a gun that can fire 10 miles, having it back a mile doesn't make much difference. And they're on a higher ground with observers down the front. And Mont Fleury is the one we're going to be going to very shortly. So they're heading their way back to the track now. And imagine the scenes on this track come, midday, the afternoon of June the 6th, with all the troops that will be coming up this way, with the marshland either side. And luckily, I'll let Ben talk again, the heavier defenses were over to the east in front of the battery. So but anyway, I'll let Ben carry on with talking about the battery, as we've got about a 5-minute drive ahead of us to get to the Mont Fleury. So the conclusion about the Green Howards, Ben, I mean, in your study of them, they were a good regiment. They did their job, and they don't get enough press. I don't think, do they?
With regards to press, I think I'd say it does help in their favour. That's probably where they get more press, or their actions are highlighted through one man more than others. As we move later on, when we go towards Crepon, obviously the Green Howards Memorial for the regiments is up there. Beautiful memorial, and I've been fortunate to take several family members whose fathers landed on Gold Beach to go and visit that as well. So it's always a good place to stop off. I don't know whether I passed on the photo, but there's a good photo looking back down from the roadway as the landings continued, of the armour moving up the track. Yep,
you did. There we go.
To give you an idea of the route that they were progressing up. Just to go back to the actual landings on the beach, we've spoken about A Company at WN35. To their left was D Company, and this was where Stan Hollis, Company Sergeant Major Stan Hollis, would be landing there. As they approached the shoreline, and to go back to the planning preparation, photography showed that there was a particular hut, a concrete structure that they believed was a machine gun position. And as they're approaching that, from his landing craft, Stan Hollis has got hold of a machine gun, and he started to pepper it, believing that it was a machine gun position. It was a target for the Naval and also for the Air Force to try and hit and knock out this single concrete emplacement. But when they did land there and they progressed up off the beach, they found that this hut is no more than what was a similar to a bus shelter. It was for the old Victorian pleasure railway line that ran across the Normandy coastline, and it was purely just a hut of no significance. And what I did find quite amusing from that was that Stan Hollis said that small piece of action going into land, he suffered his worst wound of the whole campaign. And that was from once he had finished using the machine gun, he picked it up and he burnt his hand on the barrel of the machine gun. So
I always strip for a company sergeant major to burn his hand on a hot barrel of a machine gun that's a first week of training mistake. I mean, it shows. I'm not criticizing Hollis. I'm explaining how in a situation that stressful, even a very, very well trained man can make a ridiculously silly mistake. Because of just what's going on around you. But it's a revealing bit. We'll do a special on Stan Hollis at some point in the future. I love Stan because Stan seems to he's a bit kind of clumsy, isn't he? Everything he does, there's like a moment where it kind of goes a little bit wrong first. And I like that sort of sense of perseverance he brings to it. He's not he's not your born hero. He's kind of, he gets through by effort and persistence. And so that's the high ground there. And it's just ahead, they're not going that way, but over to their right now is where they're building the new Normandy Memorial, the new one that's going to list all the British casualties of the Normandy campaign. And we can do a special on that at some point, because it divides people, whether they think it's a good thing or a bad thing or badly handled. But we'll do a special about that at some point. I want to get someone from the actual project to come on and talk about what their intentions are. So we'll do that at some point later. But can one of you show a camera back towards the beach? Is one of you on the left of the vehicle? There we go. Put it on done. So you can see the height difference. You know, you're 30 meters above sea level, something like that, and that's that open ground Ben talked about down there. And it really hasn't changed much in the years. You similar things to that then you'd see now. You know, fields and a bit marshy down near the beach. A few more houses these days, but not substantially different. And then we're coming into the actual village of Ver-sur-Mer, where they're going to make a right and go to Mont Fleury. Now, at the time, I'll let Ben carry on. Mont Fleury gun battery was really in empty fields with just one particular house. And there was one house, and it shows up in the photos. And they called it, some of the guys who land that part of the beach, the toilet seat house, because it had a circular driveway. I brought up the image now. And this circular drive, they kind of thought it looked a bit like a toilet seat. So that was the only house at the time. And then you have these 4 casemates that are under construction for the guns and various out positions and machine guns. This is where Stan Hollis did his stuff. But now there's little housing development in there. So most of these, this field area here is houses, but you can still get to a couple of the bunkers. And that's where our camera team is going to get to. Well, they should be there pretty soon, really. Mont Fleury, and as you said there, Ben, it was under construction. I've got a couple of photos from the time that shows that it was under construction. As Ben's correctly said there, it was the concrete block technique at this point in the war, rather than the formed poured concrete, because of a shortage of wood for the shuttering. And it's a very good way of looking at identifying the age of bunkers. If it's poured concrete with the wooden the wooden planks that left their impression in cement, that's early. And if it's the concrete blocks, it tends to be sort of late 43, 44. So Mont Fleury, what had the 50th Division been told about Mont Fleury in advance, Ben? What was there? They knew it was a gun battery, but were they being given updated information about the development of the defenses there?
Yeah, aerial photography would show the progress of the actual concrete emplacements. They would have known that 2 were complete and 2 were incomplete. Intelligence told us that the guns, they believed that the guns that were being kept there were 12.2 Russian guns from the Eastern Front that were brought back and put into these positions. So as we look at it now, I'm just trying to orientate. To the bottom left, you could see there what the men called lavatory pan villa. Yeah,
lavatory pan, toilet seat house, depending on the regiment. Yeah, says there. Yeah.
And that was also a guide, a lock-on, not just for the men that would land on the beach, but also for the naval men that would be landing the men onto the beach, that they knew. And again, accounts say that they knew that they were landing in the right position, because up on the brow of the ridge line they could see the lavatory pan villa, so they knew that they were coming in onto the correct place. The makeup of the position itself, the 2 complete concrete encasements, one of them directly in front of us now, which we'll get a better view of in a minute. And then in front of that, more down towards the roadway where Mag and Duncan have just come up from, you had machine gun positions, and that's where Stan Hollis and a fellow officer, just down by Lavatory Pan Villa, that corner there, where they took out 2 positions and took, I think, 35 prisoners.
Yeah.
Stan taking them pretty much without any action from the second position, because they saw what he did to the first and didn't want to probably engage.
So just where we've been down there, Vida Sons 35, up this track here, turned along here. Here's where they're building the new memorial. Then down here, and they've come up through the housing development now. And here's the gun battery here, 1, 2, 3, 4 casemates. There's the lavatory pan, toilet seat, whichever regiment call it different things, house there. And the Stan Hollis action, which I say we'll cover in a future show, was here. And you've got the bomb craters and anti-tank ditches that were there as well. So They should be there in front of the bunkers there. And there's some, if you do get yourself to Gold Beach when travel becomes possible again, there are some interesting information panels you can read at some of these sites that tell you some of the history and some of the personalities involved. And one of the bunkers, and Mag will be there, well, I think Duncan's there now, has been turned into a gîte. They've added a rather naff concrete sort of staircase going up, and you can kind of have a patio on the top there, and that's why the rear of the bunker where the gun will be wheeled in, and it's still got damage on the corner there. In fact, they tried to sell this. It's been up for sale for a few years, but it's really in poor condition, and there's not many windows. But if you want to own a bunker that saw action on D-Day, or at least was attacked on D-Day, whether the guns ever fired or not is not anybody's guess, but you can buy that. But it's you can't do much with it. It is what it is. It's a concrete bunker. But that's why the gun casemate's there that Duncan's at, and Mag is at the other one. I'll put it on Mag's for a second. Mag is beside the other one. That's the one has the information board. So these are roughly the same size as the ones at Ver-sur-Mer, roughly, a different style of bunker, but roughly the same kind of idea. And as Ben said, the Allies believe there are Russian guns there, and possibly Eastern European crews again. So yeah, some pretty amazing stuff there. And yeah, you can see that it's not as visited, this area, somewhere like Pointe du Hoc down the road where the Rangers assaulted. There's a proper site with walkways and visitor centre. This is just sitting in the middle of a housing development, but there's inside the bunker there.
Usually find cows living in there today.
Yeah, it's a cow shelter, very heavily fortified cow shelter, which is nice. And then there's the other one in the field, which they're going to go and have a look at now. And so tell us about the action for clearing these bunkers, Ben.
So the actions, the Green Howards progressing up from the beach itself. This is D Company, and to their left-hand side, so what would be behind us from the direction that we're walking, you had the East Yorks coming up that left-hand flank as well towards this position, but they also had to deal with the WM position 34, the lighthouse at Ver-sur-Mer, as well over that side, the left-hand side. From the diaries and the accounts, it's taken them roughly 1 hour since landing to progress from the beach up to the Mont Fleury Battery. So roughly 1 kilometre in 1 hour they've taken. They do have armoured support with them, similar to the roadway down exiting the beach for the Dragoon Guards that would be supporting them. Along this road, a couple of 100 yards past Lavatory Band Villa, was another bomb crater that needed to be filled to open up the road for the vehicles to support. You had Averies coming into play now. You had the flail tanks, numerous minefields around this area, all across to the western side of the battery in those open fields towards where the memorial is going to be built was minefields. The men come up to the encasements. They have been shelled, bombed by not only the RAF, but again, Belfast and Orion have been pummeling these sites. Very little action is actually taken at the gun encasements themselves. Very little fighting. And the German garrison that are there pretty much surrender and hand themselves over to the British. Stan Hollis may have helped further down north of that field by him uncovering these two machine gun emplacements. He effectively potentially stopped the Germans firing into the rear of the Green Howards and the East Yorks that were coming up to this position that would have been open to being fired on if he hadn't have knocked out and taken those two positions further forward. So little action, prisoners taken, but one thing that stood out to me as I read through the diaries, and you'll appreciate this, Paul, it's small things that all of a sudden just jump out and grasp you. And one point was that the battery commander, it's recorded in the diaries, committed suicide and didn't hand himself in or allow himself to become a prisoner of war.
Wow.
I've looked to see if I could find out who that officer was, but at this time I haven't been able to find out exactly who he was. So if anyone does have any information on him or can assist, please let me know. But I can only guess that he may have felt that if the Germans had ended up putting the Allies back into the sea, that he may have had repercussions come his way for the battery falling and being taken on D-Day.
Yeah, possibly, yeah.
He took that option of taking his own life rather than either one, becoming a prisoner of war, or two, having the repercussions of not doing his allocated job.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating stuff. And I had some questions on YouTube about who was building these bunkers. And early in 42, yeah, they're training in and bussing in Todd workers from other parts of Europe. As it gets more desperate towards 44, they're using a combination of local laborers. And indeed, when you get the foreign troops, like the Russian troops and Austrian troops, a lot of them are spending half their time actually pouring concrete themselves. So needs must at this point. So rather than training on their gunnery and training on their duties, they're actually busy shoveling cement and sand into buckets every day, making bunkers. You can see here's the one that's under construction, and in that condition, with it being swept by the sea, but it looks like it's brand new. That concrete looks like it was put down last week, doesn't it? It's amazingly fresh looking. And Mag found some spang earlier, which I hope you noticed there. We found some bullet holes. Mag, normally it's Duncan that finds the spang, but Mag found it today. We're training her up well. She's looking for bullet holes, and we can't say what that's from. Is that is that aerial or shrapnel or machine gun? Who knows? But it's definitely spang, and Duncan's back in the emplacement there. So yeah, Mont Fleury is a surprisingly good way to learn the construction techniques of the Germans at this point of the war, and how they're changing their materials and things because of the pressures of what they're trying to do at this point there. So I got a couple of questions on YouTube saying, is this area kind of available to visit? Well, yes and no. I mean, someone owns these fields, but there's no fences, there's no gate. They haven't got anywhere that says no entry. And France doesn't actually have a trespass law in that sense. But if you start climbing over fences, that becomes a little bit more worrisome. But there, Duncan's fixing on the view. Yeah, you can understand exactly why the Germans chose to put a gun battery at that location. It's got an absolutely perfect view out to sea there, and it's also, as I said earlier, spaced out in between the next one. So the one to the left, the next one to the left is Point du Hoc for where the Rangers, and the next one to the right is Long-sur-Mer. No, the other way around. Long-sur-Mer, then Point du Hoc, and then over to the right you get the ones on Juno Beach. So these gun batteries every 8 to 10 miles. So fantastic images, guys. Really, really impressed today. So let's talk about the Navy again, Ben, because we're coming up to 45 minutes now. I think let's try and talk about the story you wanted to bring in, because I think it's a cracking one.
Yeah, for just to briefly touch on HMS Orion towards the end of the day. And this features the 4th, 7th Royal Dragoon Guards. That once the Mont Fleury Battery has been taken, WN34 as well, they begin to press inland roughly about an hour after the initial lands. You've then got the Durham Light Infantry, 3 battalions coming in to then support, and you have the leapfrog progression that we've spoken about in other episodes that we've spoken about, and they begin to push inland. One of the key objectives was the 7th Greenhouse needed to secure the bridge at Crewley, just in front of the chateau.
Spang.
The bridge over the River Soul's needed to be secured, so then the armour could continue to roll out into the countryside, and that was done. Accounts of the tank crews talk about, and if anyone's ever driven that route and visited Crewley, the chateau, the castle up on the left-hand side, the crews were talking about how enclosed they felt by the high height of the buildings. They felt pending as they made their way through the town to then push south onto the outskirts.
No, I'd never seen that graffiti there before. Look, 31st of March 1944. I don't know. And I know that's Mars is French. Is that also March in German? Is someone German understands German? Is that German for March? I don't know. Or is that French? But Yeah. Anyway, that's obviously from the time 31st of March 1944. MB, or is that an R? R B B B?
B or an N?
Yeah.
It's actually a D.
A D, is it?
D.
Okay.
It's a D. Yeah, it's a D.
Fantastic stuff.
Yeah, so the Dragoon Guards just press south of Crewy, where they fan out into a field and then come under fire from a small copse of woods just in front of them, and they quite quickly 4 of the tanks are knocked out. You've got 4 troops up there, so you're looking at roughly around 16 tanks at that point up on this ridge just south of Crewy, and they're being engaged. The tank crews, as commanders do, we've covered it in other accounts, one tank commander gets out of his tank and goes across to speak to another with regards to what's going on and how they're going to progress. And it's at that point they begin to take more incoming fire that they believe was either mortar or shells from an artillery position further inland from the Germans. And it wasn't till afterwards, when they looked into what took place up at that point of the battle, that it was actually HMS Orion that was firing in shells. A forward observer had called in to support the troops of the Royal Dragoon Guards. And as we've seen with the in other cases, a blue-on-blue incident, friendly fire, where HMS Orion shells are falling in amongst the tanks and the troops themselves, causing casualties, killing several people as well.
There's some brilliant images coming there from the guys there. Some amazing stuff. We're getting some good comments on YouTube. I'm getting more viewers than I thought I was going to get. A time of day early on a Saturday. Obviously, there's no one up in the USA or Canada. Well, maybe someone in Canada, but people will discover it later on. I'm really, really enjoying this show. So, yeah, the Forward Observers is something I want to do a special show on Forward Observers at some point, because casualty rates were astronomical, the Forward Observers, and understandable when you stick a radio set and a massive great aerial on it and start drawing attention to yourself. And the loss of the foos on some of the beaches was to cause great problems getting inland, notably on Sword Beach, pushing towards Hillman. Lack of Forward Observers there, and so that's something I want to do about in a future show. It's definitely worth talking about, and about the Navy in general. I'll get Stephen Fisher or someone on to talk about the role of the Navy, because as tour guides we talk about the Navy a bit, because it's not so much abstract, but you're trying to explain an event about a ship that was sitting 6 miles away. It's not quite the same as showing people, like we are now, a bunker with bullet holes in it, talking about an infantry action. So we always feel that the Navy, you end up not talking about them much, or you talk about it in the evening over dinner or on the drives and things. But the Navy aspect is very, very important, and we should do more about it. So there's at least one Yank watching, but I think that's a minority. Anyway, people are really enjoying this. So we'll bring the show to an end in a few minutes, because I want to try and keep it under an hour so that it gets more views and things. So Ben, in studying Gold Beach, and thank you for all the work you've done for this show here, it does deserve more attention, doesn't it? It absolutely, near these sites. And we talked when we talked about setting up this show, whether we carry on towards Crepon and the Green Howards, but I think we should do that in a future show. Do one thing at a time and cover it, and we can cover the Stan Hollis story in with a proper dedicated show. Yeah. So in conclusion, the Green Howards, what they didn't. What was their final position on D-Day? People like Honeyman and Prenti, where did they get to when they at close of day?
So with that last action that I spoke about with the 4th and 7th Royal Dragoon Guards just up south of Crewy, that's where they then consolidated at the end of the day. You're looking, it's late afternoon when that action takes place. So they are quite a few kilometres short of the initial object, or the set objective of St. Leger, and they consolidate up just south of Crewy, ready to then springboard and push on the next day. And then you go into the actions of the Durham Light Infantry pushing down towards Chateau Audrey, that sort of
Audrey,
area.
Longevre, Christo, all those villages inland, which would make some cracking shows in the future. So, yes, it's been brilliant stuff. I've really enjoyed bringing this to you. So, I'll remind you again where we've been going. So, the guys are now walking around these bunkers here at the Mont Fleury gun battery, which is Videsnons S33A, or the battery there, and they've been for around here. So, a little bit of a spotlight on Gold Beach. So, well, I'm gonna let the guys finish up soon, and we'll bring things to an end. In terms of a bit of housekeeping, I want to thank a few more patrons for joining up with us, and a couple of even new ones and some increased pledges. So Gary Miller, Dave Collins, Henry Maroney, John Randolph, and John Toon. Thank you for your contributions. I'll go around and list some of the original donators back in the early time, back in June at some point. I'll try and give a few every time. And of course, if you haven't already, click the Patreon link and consider giving us a couple of dollars a month to help us keep this going through the winter and through next season as well, because I love to keep doing more of this. I really enjoy it. The presenters keep enjoying it. And the camera team is the dream team again today. Duncan and Mag do an outstanding job there on the ground. Do you want to put the camera on yourself and say goodbye, folks? That's not you, Matt. That's a horse. Even I can tell that's a horse. Thanks, Mag. Perfect job. Well done. Brilliant. Duncan. Thanks, Duncan. Is the producer there? Where's the producer? Where's Mr. Colin, who gets you there on time? Anyway, without these people going out and spending their time, and every time we do these shows, it's fuel, it's petrol, it's cups of tea, and these are all guides. We're all, Ben, Colin, Mag, Duncan, me. We've all had virtually no work this year, so this is keeping us off the streets and keeping us busy. So thank you very much for watching. The next show is Monday evening, and I'm really looking forward to that one because it is our Being a World War II Historian panel. With amazing historians, Jenny Grant, Olivia Smith, Claire Mully joining us, Stacey Hayashi from Hawaii, and we're going to talk about the perils and problems of being a 21st century military historian if you're a lady. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. Any final words, Ben?
No, once again, thank you, Doug, Duncan, and Mag for being out on the ground, and Paul for allowing me to come on.
No, it's been very popular. People are requesting more Gold Beach. So you're my Gold Beach go-to guy at the moment. So we'll do some stuff in the future. So this is Paul Woodadge for World War II TV saying we'll see you again Monday evening. And I've got lots more shows coming up. Keep checking Twitter. Keep checking YouTube. Follow the World War II TV on Facebook if you're not already. And please share these videos. Share the links because we've got an amazing product, I think, here with some amazing historians, but we're not quite getting the massive views yet. And we need your help to get the word out there to more people that what we're doing here, because you can't get this elsewhere. You can't get these live images from battlefields with the expertise of people like Ben coming on and John McManus and Alex Kirsch, all these other guys. We're doing something pretty special here. So thanks everybody for watching. I'll see you all Monday night for the Being a Historian panel. And thanks, Ben. Thanks, Duncan. Thanks, Mag. See you all next time. Cheers. Thanks for watching.